Hey, Genderqueer Chat. It is Thursdays with Jan, and I'm still hibernating over here. And the lights in my room just went out too. So thankfully, it's still light outside. It probably won't be for too long. Um, but this week's topic is heroes, and like Micah and Chris, I'm choosing not to use the term. Um, just because it's lost a lot of its meaning for me. Some of the associations that I make with it are um, people who have been idealized, or it kind of discredits everyone working around the few people who might have gotten recognition for an idea. So I prefer role models, people whose work I admire. Those are terms or phrases that I'm a little more comfortable with, and so I have a forever expanding list of people whose work I admire and role models. My role models are usually people who I know in real life. um, so let's see here. I wrote down people who have ideas that are full of awesome, and a lot of these people naturally are going to come from my immediate field of work and interest, which is industrial design, or from closely related fields, and it might actually be a good window into the world of design for people who are not familiar with what it is. So let's see, starting with a really kind of big name, Ray and Charles Eames are some of my favorite people ever, and they were partners who they were predominantly industrial designers. They worked on furniture and architecture, and also they made a ton of short films, and they were also graphic designers. They worked across disciplines, and one of their main focus was innovation within education. They focused a lot on how information was presented and how it could be presented in a more interesting and interactive way. So, oh yeah, I visited their house was in Santa Monica, and I visited in the fall because there's a design consultancy there, which is also really cool, called Continuum, and it's one of those places where you could just feel the creative spirit throughout. Another person is Emily Pilloton, who started Project H, which is a social impact design group. There are chapters in several major cities, and I've worked with the LA chapter. I just finished a project with them, and so they have. I wrote down their 6 tenets, which kind of guide which pretty much guide their process. So their design process. So the first one is there's no design without critical action. They design with, not for, and that's with communities. They document, share, measure. There's a ton of transparency throughout their work. We start locally and scale globally. We design systems, not stuff. And we build results in simple and effective design solutions that empower communities and build effective creative capital. So Emily recently gave a TED Talk, which I've linked below, and one of their coolest projects, I think, was a classroom that they redesigned in, I believe it was in Mexico, but I might be wrong. And the kids weren't doing too well. They were writing all over the desks, and it was within an impoverished area, and they actually asked the kids to design their own classroom, and they created the platform so that the kids could do that and help them construct everything. And so it drastically changed the way in which the kids were learning within the school. So that's Project H, and Emily Pilloton has a really good relationship with my school, so I've seen her speak several times. Another person is, I had someone else here. Oh, okay, Gever Tulley, and he started the Tinkering School, which is also okay. I'm really into design and like design learning and design thinking within education, and so he started the Tinkering School, in which kids are trusted with basically with power tools, and they were able to build things that they normally wouldn't be able to, and there are a couple. This idea of trusting kids with tools is a pretty big one that's gaining recognition. There's a research group also within the MIT Media Lab called Lifelong Kindergarten, and their focus is more on technology, but it's pretty much the same idea that kids should be makers of the world around them. They should create the things that they use, because it's empowering and it also connects them to their environment. So the Tinkering School is just something that I think is really cool, and they built like bridges, and I feel like the last thing I saw of theirs almost looked like a little mini amusement park. Oh my goodness, it's 6:49. Okay, thankfully YouTube gives us 15 minutes. Buckminster Fuller is also a big name architect that was way ahead of his time, and I actually really love his quotes, and I love watching videos where he's teaching, and so I wrote down a few quotes. So let's see here. I look for what needs to be done. After all, that's how the universe designs itself. A designer is an emerging synthesis of artist, inventor, mechanic, objective economist, and evolutionary strategist. What usually happens in the educational process is that the faculties are dulled, overloaded, stuffed, and paralyzed, so that by the time most people are mature, they have lost their innate capabilities. And lastly, when I'm working on a problem, I never think about beauty, but when I have finished, if the solution is not beautiful, I know it is wrong. And so I've also gotten a chance to meet one of his students, Jay Baldwin, who's a lot older now, but was an editor of the whole Earth catalog, which predated the internet, but was basically an encyclopedia of everything, and it's amazing. One of my teachers has a copy of it, and I got to sit next to Jay at a dinner party, and so he's just full of amazing stories. Okay, what else do I have here? Jaime Lerner is an urban planner, and I believe he's also an architect, and he worked in the city of Curitiba in Brazil, and basically the city was consisted of slums, and it was flooded, and he transformed the city. He transformed the transport. Yes, he made a highly efficient transportation system, and created lots of public parks and public art projects, and encouraged the kids within the city to participate in the reconstruction or remodeling of the city, and he called this like urban acupuncture. And so there's a link below to Jaime Lerner. Okay, and also lastly, within this like kind of group of people, there's Paul Hawken, and he gave an amazing commencement speech. I haven't read it in a while actually, but I linked it. In the University of Portland, and he's also a writer and a really eloquent speaker who I've gotten the chance to see speak. And and he wrote books, Blessed Unrest, Natural Capitalism. A lot of his books are about like green economy and nonprofits. And so, okay, moving along to... I tried to put people in categories, but I don't know how well this is going to work for me. Okay, these are like well-known people. Amy Goodman, who's a journalist, and her show Democracy Now! I believe it plays on Free Speech TV and on public radio here. I've been watching Amy Goodman for years. I haven't, in the past few years, I haven't listened to her show, but she always does really great interviews and has put herself into some really dangerous situations while reporting. And with that, Howard Zinn, a historian, wrote People's History of the United States and other books. Yeah, I was really sad when he passed away. It kind of hit me that whole generation of historians and writers and great thinkers like Chomsky and so on were going to pass soon. So yeah, Howard Zinn was just somebody I felt a closeness to, and I was really sad when he passed away. Who else is there? Okay, I'm gonna skip over a few people. Writers, also Paul Manette. He was a poet and a queer activist and AIDS activist. One of his, let's see if I can remember it, famous quotes was to go without hate but not without rage, heal the world. And his book Becoming a Man was my like coming out Bible. I think I had it by my side all the time when I was in my late teens. He's an amazing writer. I've read almost all of his books. And also Jeanette Winterson is one of my favorite writers. Her work is really poetic, and a lot of her characters, their gender is really, really vague. And so her books, Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit, and The Passion, Sexing the Cherry, which her books have these really like cheesy like romance novel titles, but they're not that at all, and I almost just like want to send her an email. Because I think people get the wrong impression. So don't mind the title. The books are really good and really, really well written. Other writers, Ryszard Kapuscinski. I might have pronounced his first name wrong. He's a Polish journalist and writer. I mean, he reports in book form, and his books are a lot about spatial experience, and they're extremely impactful. So, who else do I have here? Okay, 13 minutes, jeez, okay. In terms of gender, I have kind of the big names written down. Leslie Feinberg, Julia Serrano, who wrote Whipping Girl, a transsexual woman on sexism and the scapegoating of femininity. One of the best books I've read in a while. And I'm not going to go through a list of genderqueer musicians, but I'm really glad to see more and more of them. Also Rob Brezsny, who writes for Free Will Astrology, and he's a fantastic writer. Just like, he writes weekly horoscopes that I've been reading for years. And they're always really beautifully written, like, despite what they say. It's like, I kind of pull quotes from other people's horoscopes, too. Okay, I'm running out of time here. So, those are a few of the people whose work I've admired within, uh, or I would say for a prolonged period of time. But again, I'm sure that 5 minutes after I stop recording this, I'm gonna remember like 20 more people, which is what kept happening.